Hey Misfits, it's Ashley. I wanted to share a little bit more about myself with you. I have been married 3 times. I have 3 kids by 3 different dads. I was an escort, an internet cam model for many, many years. I've helped multiple men commit adultery and have committed adultery myself. I've had my heart completely ripped out and broken by someone who I thought would be the love of my life and have had to recover from that. I was sexually groomed and molested as a young woman, young child, which led to me being raped. Essentially on paper, me being in ministry doesn't make any sense, but that's exactly where I feel called to be. And so this is me sharing a little bit of my story with you. I have a 10-week-old son, and I am in the process of divorcing his dad. Not because I want to divorce his dad, but because at this point, that's really the only thing that makes sense. You see, his dad has had multiple affairs. Not 1, not 2, but 7, 8, 9. I honestly couldn't tell you how many. The thing about it is when I met his father was it for me. He loved God. He professed to want to put Christ first in everything he did, and that was so appealing and so attractive to me. And so I fell madly in love with him. I didn't want to be with anyone else, and so we got married fast in 3 months, and we loved hard, and we moved to Detroit, got plugged into the ministry. We're doing things with inner city kids and hosting life groups, and things were going great for 2 years. There was no issues. Things were perfect until they weren't. On July 13th of 2017, my world completely imploded, and I found out that he had been having not 1 affair, not 2 affairs, but actually 6, and 3 of them were ongoing at that moment. I honestly just couldn't believe that he had done that, and that's when all the questions started. Was I not good enough? Should I leave him? He said he wanted to work things out, and so we were working, and it just didn't get better. The thing about infidelity is it makes you question everything. It makes you question your worth. It makes you think that you are not special and that nobody is going to want you. And questions that you ask yourself: am I enough? Am I doing things right? They can make you start believing that you aren't enough. Walking that out was just such a huge process, especially because of my past. I thought that because I had committed adultery and helped other men commit adultery in my past, that maybe I deserved it and that God was punishing me. God doesn't operate based on what we deserve. He operates out of this place of grace and mercy. For several years, I was an escort and an internet cam model, and that started actually by accident. It wasn't something that I planned. I had started a different business in the music industry, and that was actually going pretty well. But through just random circumstances, I started escorting. So I decided, I'll supplement this income by being an internet cam model. And if you know what that is, it's basically interactive porn where people can watch you on live stream internet and tell you what they want to see you do, and you act it out for them, and you get paid by the minute. And I participated in that for several years. Raised in church by amazing parents, and I knew the truth. I knew how God felt about me. I knew He loved me. And through that whole time, I was never alone. I could tell that God was after me. He was always tapping me on the shoulder saying, "Ashley, you need to come back. What are you doing?" He would send divine encounters, people that remind me that He loved me, and things like that. And he never left me, but I was running so fast. And finally, one day I was alone in a house that I was living in that was actually owned by one of my escorting clients, a married man. And for the first and only time in my life, I heard God with my ears say, "Ashley, if you do not come back now, I am done with you." And I know enough about the Lord, and I knew enough about His presence in my life that I did not want that to happen. And so I stopped what I was doing, and I Googled women's Bible studies and went to this Wednesday morning women's Bible study, and I hadn't stepped in a church in years. But from the moment I hit the door through the entire service, I just wept because I knew that God wanted me to come back to Him and to dedicate my life to Him. And so I did that day. I started the very long process of reminding myself of who I was in Christ and what my worth was. And that was a challenge because for several years prior to escorting, I was married to a man who was basically emotionally and mentally abusive. I was never skinny enough or smart enough or sexy enough to keep him happy. He worked crazy hours. And frankly, I shouldn't have been in a relationship with him in the first place because he was an atheist and I'm a believer. And even though I wasn't walking with the Lord whenever I met him, I should have known better, but I didn't. I ended up dating him and marrying him because he was so good to my daughter, who was an infant at the time. And I thought, I'm never going to find a man who is a better father for her than he is. And so I continued seeing him despite all the signs that I should get out of that relationship. And we ended up having our son together. I was just determined to be with this person, and it ended up wreaking havoc on my self-esteem. I felt that I just wasn't good enough. And so whenever you have that mindset that you're not good enough, you end up allowing yourself to fall into situations that you wouldn't typically fall into. And that's exactly what led me into escorting, this belief that I wasn't good enough. So before I married my second husband, I had my daughter, and her biological father was the person that I met at work whenever I was pretty young, 21, 22. And when I met him, I just had to have him, and I'm not really sure why. But I pursued him and tracked him down relentlessly. The problem with that was I was actually already married to someone else, and I ended up committing adultery, hurting that young man very, very badly. There's so many components to that relationship that led me to make the decision that I made, but ultimately I made a choice and hurt him, hurt his family, hurt my family through the choice that I made. While I was pregnant with her, a person who I respected more than just about anyone told me that they would be excited that my daughter was coming if she weren't illegitimate. So I ran as fast as I could from God from that moment on. I thought, if this person who professes to represent Christ can be so judgmental and harsh with me, then I don't want to have anything to do with God. Even though I knew God for myself, I didn't know Him well enough to separate the person from the Father. We don't take the time to step back and look at what are the roots, what's causing this person to feel the need to do the things that they're doing. What was causing me to feel that I needed to step outside of my marriage to get attention from another man? If this woman had done that, I would have been on a completely different path. But that's not what happened. And those roots that caused me to want to do that were deep, deep roots that are buried in trauma, can cause us to do things that just don't make any sense. And for me, those deep roots were planted whenever I was about 7 in first grade. My family had a very close family friend who was 16 or 17 years older than me, and from the age of 7 he started grooming me to think that I was supposed to grow up and want to be in a relationship with him, a sexual relationship. So he would say little things, touch me in weird ways, make these sexual innuendos, and over time, it just became very normal for me. So at the age of 13 or 14, he would make excuses to stay over at my family home, and he would sneak into my room at night and come into my room and touch me sexually. And I never said anything to my parents because this was a person that I felt like I should be able to trust. And so I just kind of went with it, and that started a domino effect of all of these other things that I have had to since deal with. And by the time I was 15, I had fully accepted that the interactions that I was having with this older family friend were normal and that it was okay. And so I ended up having sex with him against my will. And initially I was okay with the beginning part of that interaction, and then it just got completely out of hand. And when everything came to light, nothing happened to him. There were no charges pressed. It was just like, well, that happened and it's probably her fault. And that one experience accidentally taught me that I should just take whatever men dish out. That in order to be special, I have to perform sexually. That if I want to mean something to someone, that I need to give my body to them. And that's not true, but that's what I learned through that experience. I also learned that men can do whatever they want and you just have to take it. Since he was never punished or held accountable in any way at all, I just thought, well, this is what happens with men. If they treat you badly and say negative things to you and manipulate you and lie to you, you as a woman just continue to go on with it. That experience taught me that in order to feel special, I needed to have sex with people because I wasn't getting the attention that I needed from my husband. My first husband, I went outside of my marriage and got that attention from someone else. And then when that imploded, I just was seeking attention from any source that I could get it. I ended up meeting my second husband, who treated me horribly and taught me that I was worth nothing. And then I start escorting because, one, I think that I'm a sexual object and that men can do whatever they want. Two, I've been groomed since I was in first grade to think that having sex with much older men is normal and it's okay. And I was so desperate for that approval that having all of these men pay to tell me that I'm beautiful, that I'm sexy, and that I'm worth something, those are all things that I learned from that very first experience. Through that initial trauma, I also learned accidentally that I should just be okay taking whatever's dished out. And because of all the choices that I had made previously, I felt like I deserved to be with a man who professed to love me over here, but who was consistently cheating on me, even while I was pregnant with our son, that's what I deserved because that's the choices that I had made. God does not deal with us based on our past choices. He deals with us based on His grace and His love and His mercy. And ultimately, that is what our heart has to be grounded in and rooted in. So I have people who say, Ashley, you've been through all of these things. How can you believe that there is a God that is kind and good and merciful? And all I can say is that even through all of the things that I have walked through, that God has always been there. He has been so faithful to me, providing for me, protecting me. I don't have any STDs, making sure I was never physically assaulted while I was escorting, giving me the hope and the grace that I needed in order to be able to live through my husband cheating on me, bringing people into my life that remind me of who I am in Christ so that my identity is not wrapped up solely in the things that my second husband said about me, and ultimately giving me the grace I need for myself to forgive myself for the choices that I've made and to move forward. Maybe your husband is cheating on you, or you're making money in ways that you had no intention of it, and you think, well, I don't deserve anything better. I am here to tell you that you do, and that God is waiting for you. All you have to do is just take that step, because He wants to bring you out of the situation that you're in, whatever that may be. You're never too far gone, and He wants to fill the void that you have in your heart in ways that you just can't imagine. That's what Red Rope Ministries is about. I will go further into detail of each section of my life and give biblical truths that I learned during those periods. So follow me on YouTube and Instagram, Facebook. I look forward to speaking with you more, hearing your stories, and I will talk to you soon.